Hello friends! Today we will be reading out of 1 Samuel 1 through 3 if you would like to go through it and read it all yourself. And in today's Bible story we are learning about Elkanah and his wife Hannah. Now Hannah was barren, which means she couldn't have any kids, and back in biblical times it was very important to have children, and so this made her heart very sad. And so she would pray to the Lord and hope that she would one day have children. And one day when her and Elkanah went to the temple, she was praying and the Eli priest found her, and he was very confused because in here it says that she was praying from her heart. So that kind of means that, you know when you kind of mouth words to yourself, so like you're praying but you're not saying anything out loud but you're mouthing them. And so the priest actually thought she was drunk, and so he was telling her, like, if you're just going to be in the temple drunk, then just get out. But then she explained to him that she was just very vexed and anxious, and that she was pouring out her heart to God. And then Eli was like, oh, I see. And then he prayed that the Lord would grant her petition. And what she was actually praying about was she really wanted a son. And so after she prayed, she went home. And then later she actually found out that she was pregnant and that she would have a son. And she named her son Samuel. And she named him Samuel because she said, I have asked for him from the Lord. And he was given to her. And then so once she had the baby, she kept him herself, and she weaned him, and she gave him food and helped him grow up, to be around like a toddler age. But then she actually brought Samuel back to the temple, and she offered him to the Lord. So basically she gave him to the Eli priest, and the Eli priest took him, and so Hannah would only get to see her son about once a year. But that way she got to see him grow. But in her heart she was so thankful that God would grant her a child that she gave her child back to the Lord and had him live at the temple. And she had many babies after that too, children that lived with her. And something else important to note is that at the time, Eli was the priest, and how priests worked is that the priest would have sons, and then their sons would grow up and become priests. But Eli's sons were not fit to be priests, so that was a little bit of a dilemma that was happening at the time. And so it was very important that Samuel was actually given back to the Lord, because then he was there to take over for Eli after. And so, but they didn't know that at first. But so how Eli was actually called to ministry and to be a priest actually happens in Samuel 3. And if you want to read that story, it will be in Samuel 3. And so basically what happens is that Eli and Samuel, they're in their separate quarters, they're in their rooms, they're sleeping, and then all of a sudden Samuel hears his name, Samuel, Samuel, like Samuel calling him. And so he gets out of bed and he goes to Eli, and then he says, you called me? And then, nope, and then Eli's like, no, I didn't call you, go back to bed. And this happens a few times. But then Samuel comes back to Eli and is like, you're calling me. And then Eli says, when you hear your name again, say, here I am. And then Samuel goes back to his bed and lays down, and then he says, here I am. Like, Samuel, Samuel, Samuel. And then Samuel says, here I am. And this was actually God speaking to him, calling him to the ministry of being a priest. And why this is very important is because back in those days, like how it is now, God didn't talk to people audibly, like they couldn't hear him. There wasn't signs and visions. And so God actually talking to Samuel was actually a really big deal, just like it would be a big deal today. And today God doesn't talk to us audibly. We reread the Bible so that we can hear him. But then, before Jesus came, he was calling him to be, that's why we had priests. And so he called him to be a priest at that time. And yeah, so that's the story of Samuel, and how a woman's prayer to have a son ended up carrying on the priesthood lineage.